And with 700 meters to go, this is the moment I decide to launch my attack because at the end of the day, who's going to try and sprint from 700 meters away? All right, all right. Welcome back. Welcome for those new to my channel. Welcome back. Those returning, I appreciate your viewership. There is my boy Darren saying what's up and good luck. And good luck to him on this race because it is, whew, man, oh man. So I'm in the 530 to 690 category, which after having been off the bike for what feels like a million years, even though it was only 5 days, my legs were not prepared for this crit. Now, this is part of the Rhino Crit series, Rhino Racing Short Crits series. And so Paul Southworth and JD and others have been racing these. And so since I had time away from the bike, I figured why not start my racing up again with something like this, where it would be a shorter race, nothing that, nothing to write home about. I figured, this wouldn't be a terrible introductory race for the crit series. It's on the Zwift crit course. And so while I have raced this before, I've not raced it enough to where I feel like I know the course. Now we are doing an ungodly amount of laps with the lead in. It ends up being 11 laps total, around 11 and 12, something like that. And so as you can see, we start off pretty fast. I'm on the NV89s with the SL8 level 5, and the reason why I'm on the NV89s and not the disc wheels is because this part here where you're going through the hills, every time you hit the top, it gets into that 7-8%, and it just really, like, I feel like it really hurts. So you see that guy who's going away, Feeney? Keep an eye on him because he is someone that I'm going to point out quite often while we're doing these laps. And so I'm at this point just trying to stay with the group, stay with the pack. We're doing 300 watts so far. Averaging over 300 watts. And so I'm doing my best to just to kind of sit in and, you know, thinking like, all right, if we're going to maintain this pace, you know, I'm gonna have to really fight to stay with the group, or else I'm gonna get dropped, and it's gonna be over for me. And so with Feeney off the front now, 4 seconds off the front as he takes the KOM. The group starts to pick up speed a little bit, and now going that early on lap one, it's kind of it's kind of suspect that that's not going to stick. And so that is what's going through my head at this moment. Just looking to stay with the group. No one else is really attacking. Feeney's got, 3 seconds on the group right now. We're slowly starting to catch up. We're holding a moderate pace. We're not doing anything crazy. Now, this little 2% riser, I started noticing as the race went on, it became a very strategic point in the race. And you see Feeney's already back in the group. And so we're just kind of moseying along till we hit the next lap. And so jumping forward, here goes Feeney again. You see his avatar start getting into that sprint mode. He gets into the orange numbers, and he is gone, opening up a 1 second gap and, greater. Now the group does start to, push a little bit hard to, seemingly close that gap. You see one person off the front there. Feeney again has a 4 second gap on everybody. And that's how it seems to be lap after lap. And so as we get back to the third lap here, you see, Feeney and one other rider are about 3 seconds off the front. After that entire lap, they're still, pushing hard, pushing forward. And so that is, seems like that's where they want to stay. And ultimately their desire to push forward is what's keeping all of us kind of moving forward. And so I end up, you know, pushing a little bit harder here to, stay as close as I can to that third place rider, to D block in order to just kind of keep on his wheels, keeping his draft, as the group slowly starts to catch Feeney and Solos Solozaro, yeah, Solozano. And so as we all come back together, Feeney and Solozano are back in the group and just kind of coasting along. And again, I am frantically adjusting my gears because I'm starting to fall off the back ever so slightly. My quads are absolutely on fire at this point, and I am doing my best just to keep up. And so as we round the corner here, Solozano actually starts to attack a little bit, but Feeney again off the front, pushing hard. And so he is once again moving forward and just pushing the pack, which again, that ultimately serves serves the purpose of really making this group work, really making them not rest on their laurels, and ensuring that you know it's going to make sure that the last few laps are hard, because everybody's going to be tired at that point or worn down. Now, it doesn't take that long for everybody to start feeling that way. You'll see here shortly. As these two riders are again off the front. They've got 4 seconds on the group. Now, forwarding again, they are still Fini and Solozano are 6 seconds off the front. You see one rider there starting to push forward. Um, Sickles is starting to push forward, try to bridge that gap. And so I decide I'm going to push towards Sickles to see if I can catch him. And I give a bit of a push, but again, my legs at this point are on fire. Even though I used my drafting boost, I completely wasted it because I was off the front, not getting any draft. You see the riders behind me are about 10-ish meters behind me, 10, 15 meters, not really that far behind. And so as I start to round the corner and get to the lap banner, I see that you know the three up front are basically slowing down enough to where they're all three coming together. The riders behind me start coming through, so I just decide to ease off the pedals or ease off the chase and kind of let the group do what it does and pull me forward, but also pull the three off the front back. And so as we get around the corner here to lap number 6 out of 11, we are starting to hit the bumps again, and you can see now on this lap, while and this is where I started recognizing, all right, everybody's starting to hurt. When you see everybody launching their draft bus, and that's the only power up we had in this race, when you see everybody launching their draft bus on this hill, everybody's hurting. People are feeling it at this point because people are indicating by the use of their power ups, they're indicating that they are just looking to keep up. They're looking to hold strong. They're looking to, not get dropped versus being on the offensive. They're, in a way acting defensive by launching their draft altogether. And so you see a couple more riders with their draft plus. And so I'm just holding on to mine at this moment just to see, how far I can push this. At this point, my legs are hurting. Even though my heart rate's in the 160s, my average power's in the 260s, my quads are on fire. Um, on fire in a whole new level than I've felt in a long time. And again, I was off the bike for a handful of days. One of those days, I ended up going to a water park and doing essentially a lot of stair climbing, um, to the different slides and stuff. And so I was absolutely feeling it this time around. And so as we start to come down the cobbles, again, we're rounding the corner. And at this point, I'm starting to make a mental map of the course. I'm starting to look at, okay, I know we're rounding that corner off the cobblestones, rounding that corner. As we make this right hand turn, we start going up this 2% incline. And that 2% incline is really where the group does the most to come together. Like the group really slows down on that 2% riser. And then as we round that corner, the group starts to speed up. And, everybody at this point, everybody's, using their draft bus if they've got it. I like using my draft bus at this point because it's allowing me to basically take the draft bus either to the line or close to the line. And so I'm also making a mental map of the distance, from that 2% incline all the way to the finish line. So you know, I know at one point when can I launch my final sprint and how long I'm going to be able to hold it and what that's going to look like on the road. And so as we come around again on lap 7, you see this rider off the front, Solorzano, pushing and pushing hard, starting to create a little bit of a gap. And I at this point I was thinking like, all right, this guy's kind of crazy, pushing, pushing a little bit hard. Maybe he's a stronger sprinter, stronger rider. I knew that, you know, Solozano and Feeney were really going to be the two that, if I sprint as early as I want to sprint, were going to be the ones to contest my sprint. Because this whole race, they were the ones that were truly showing that, you know, they could push hard, they could push the group. You see that because of that, rider pushing, everybody started pushing a little bit harder, um, forcing all of us to get back into the, 2.5, 3 watts per kilogram range. At least for me, that's what it was to keep up. And so, that again is just kind of showing that, like, hey, he's kind of showing that I'm not fatigued. I'm not in any danger. I'm going to push to see who's able to keep up and who's, hurting right now. And so jumping forward again to lap 8, as we round the corner, you see everybody launching their draft bus, or at least a few people launching their draft bus, which again is, to me, that is an indicator of people are hurting. And if you're using your draft bus, especially right after you cross a checkpoint like that, you're using your draft bus, then you're probably hurting. You're probably in a position where you're not going to be able to, really contest that final sprint, because at this point we've got, 3 laps to go, and it really does seem like it's going to come down to a, finishing sprint. At least that's what I thought was going to happen at this point. So as we're rolling through, I'm doing my best to kind of modulate my speed. You can see the gear that I'm in right now, kind of jumping between 7th and 10th, just to kind of go through those rollers. Again, that's a way lower gear than what I started with, because everybody's starting to slow down. This race is once again starting to slow down, and it's starting to look like everybody's fatiguing, and no one really wants to push the envelope on trying to make a final break for the for the podium. And so at this point, my goal is to just stay with the group until that final lap. And so just kind of fast forwarding through this, because you can see that, there's, one guy off the front and kind of pushing on. And, you know, again, it's same person, just pushing forward, keeping the group, on their toes, forcing us to work, which again, for me, is just, it really is exposing how tired my legs are as we pass through these hills. Again, everybody using their power ups. And so I'm keeping an eye on that. At this point, I'm ultimately decided that, I'm gonna launch when we get around that hill, depending on how I feel, because you can see that everybody's just kind of staying together. No one's really, launching any attacks to, push. Yeah, there's a couple riders that are kind of pushing forward, and as we start to get into, closer to this last lap, the entire group starts to speed up. You see the 2 riders, Feeney and Solozano, are pushing hard, pushing the group. They're, Solorzano is 2 seconds off the front. Feeney's a second off the front. You got Sickles a second off the front. And so the group is really stretched out here. And so I knew that in order for me to, be competitive on the final sprint, I needed to push a little bit harder through these rollers to stay with this, not only stay with this group, but make sure that I am, close to the front few guys. And so as I push through this, again, everybody's using their power ups, or a lot of people are using their power ups, um, which again is, for me, is a sign that, people are just doing their best to hold on. And so as the pace starts to push forward, I am, surprisingly feeling very good. My legs are hurting, and hurting a lot, but my breathing and my lungs and my heart, like, I feel, my cardiovascular system feels good. Like, I feel like I can do it. I feel like, I have the energy to, get to the final sprint here. And so I'm just doing my best at this point to stay with the group and not fall too far behind off of these, few front riders. But again, I also want to, you know, launch my attack strategically. So I start using my draft boost as we come off the cobblestones, because I know that, when I get off the back of, if I can get off the back of this group right before we hit the hill, I can use these riders because it is a 2%. I can use these riders to kind of draft through. So I start, uh, changing gears up really quickly. I hit my, 700-800 watt power and just start to sprint off the front and start creating a gap right away and just doing my best to hold that, 5-ish 600 watts pace here. You see a couple others riders start to attack. I've only got about a second off of the, off the front of this group. You see Hunter is about a second behind me. Feeney's a second behind me. And so I'm pushing as hard as I can. I start to slow down a bit because again, my legs are sore. So I, hit the gears up and start to push a little bit harder. I'm not, going my full sprint, but I'm still holding 600 watts ish. You see one rider come through, and then the second rider come through, and ultimately, I was able to cross the line in third place with Darren, literally milliseconds behind me. Sneaking in fourth place. And so you can see, Feeney ended up crossing the line in fifth place. Solozano, I don't see him on the top 10 or the top 8 there. But Sickles and Hopkins were the ones that ultimately took the first and second place. So chapeau to them. And you see that, I think out of all the riders, Darren probably did the best with his efficiency, averaging 240 watts. And still crossing the line in fourth place. Great job. And so that ultimately, for someone like me who likes the long range sprint, I feel like I handled that well. I, was definitely hurting enough to where I could not push harder than that, 600-700 watts. And so that's something I'm going to continue to work on until basically going to keep doing those long range sprints until I can, until I continue to podium and or take first place, or more people become competitive and start to beat me, and start to basically push hard enough to where I can't launch a 700 800 meter sprint because I'm completely out of energy. So just throwing that out there for those who want to take up the challenge. And so, with that, I will leave you guys and see you on the next race.
Hey guys, it's Miguel from that thing you just watched. Hope you enjoyed that video, whether it was topic on nutrition or racing or a combination of both. Feel free to come back. I will continue to put out videos like this and continue to showcase what you can do with smart nutritional strategies, combining that with racing, because that is what this channel is all about. And feel free to check in if you want to see more racing. Click on wherever the link's at, subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next race.